Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We return to the Matrix. In the last episode, we discussed how Jussie Smollett was given a slap on the wrist for his political conspiracy. Well, the two individuals involved in the hoax have demanded Smollett confess to the crime. Well, good luck with that request, because Hollyweird celebrities don't care about integrity. They only care about fulfilling their narcissistic desires. The sky would have to fall on their heads to get them to even think about holding themselves accountable. And when it appears they're doing so, remember, they're a part of Hollyweird. Acting is always a part of their public relation. But then again, the two brothers are also a part of it, so they're just as corrupt as Smollett. They agreed to be paid to carry out the hoax. They agreed to shout racist and homophobic slurs. They agreed to wear MAGA hats and shout "This is MAGA country." They are co-conspirators. Yet these individuals apparently weren't charged. They were initially held in police custody for battery charges, but then no charges were filed. So after it was revealed it was all a hoax, they simply walked away, just like the main conspirator. Yet, as always, just like Democrats, the two brothers are outing Smollett for the hoax. Yep, always stabbing each other in the back to save face. Quote, Nigerian brothers who helped Jussie Smollett stage hoax call on the star to admit it. Justice was not served when the Illinois Supreme Court tossed out actor Jussie Smollett's conviction for staging a 2019 hoax, according to two Nigerian brothers who helped him stage it. Smollett became the focus of national attention in 2019 after he claimed he was set upon by attackers who pelted him with racist and homophobic slurs. After Smollett was hit with 16 charges related to his false claims, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx dismissed them in exchange for a $10,000 fine and community service. Okay, so here you have a Hollyweird millionaire who conspired to incite political violence against Trump voters and supporters, faked a hate crime based on race, sexual orientation, and political affiliation, lied to law enforcement, forced law enforcement to use their resources to investigate the claims, and the attorney throws the case out and demands Smollett pay a $10,000 fine. That's like $10 to him. It's not hitting his pockets hard, even if there would be a fine. Something along the lines of a $100,000 fine is more like it. And this is why you shouldn't have partisan judges, because Kim Foxx is a Democrat. They should not be affiliated with a political party, because obviously when it comes to political crimes, they will show bias towards their fellow party constituents. This was a political conspiracy. There's no way around it. And to magnify this, we just switch the political party. If it were old Joe in office and some Hollyweird celebrity who was affiliated with the Republican Party and had done the exact same thing with two individuals posing as Joe Biden supporters, they would be thrown in jail. The mainstream media would be going crazy over it, how that Republican or conservative had insulted people of color and insulted the LGBTQ community. In fact, they may have been charged with a hate crime against those groups due to using them as a social political football. They would be sentenced to at least a year or two in a federal prison for conspiracy charges, along with the other criminal charges in this very case. But because the federal government and even the judicial system has become left-leaning, and some literally far left, if you're anti-Trump or anti-Republican, you're giving a slap on the wrist. Let's continue though. A new prosecutor then entered the picture. Smollett was convicted in 2021 on 5 charges released to the incident, but the conviction was overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court, citing Fox's deal. Abimbola and Olabinjo Osundero, the two brothers, said the deal was a sour end to a sad episode, according to Fox News. Yeah, a sad episode, quite fitting, because it was just another goddamn television episode filmed, masked as a hoax, which was masked as a real incident. Quote, we were taken back initially, not because of the Supreme Court's decision, but because Jussie never admitted guilt, Abimbola said. Wait, you see this fuckery? You weren't shocked about the court's decision, but you were shocked Smollett didn't admit his guilt? Which one holds more weight here? A dishonest piece of shit who plotted up the political conspiracy, or the Supreme Court who literally ignored it and dropped all the charges? I guess it's a rhetorical question when you look at their character as well. Quote, we understand that he has due process rights and double jeopardy should not be, and is not allowed in America. However, Jussie should have admitted guilt. Unquote. Okay, see, this is a bunch of fuckery. The problem is double jeopardy should be applied because the goddamn Supreme Court didn't charge him accordingly for the crimes he committed. So he should have been, or should be, tried once again for those crimes, to punish him according to the law. And again, this is how corrupt the judicial system is, where loopholes created by biased judges and their verdicts allows someone to slither out of trouble when they are flat out guilty, and guilty of serious crimes, by the way. Sedition also comes to mind when you factor in the potential fallout of this hoax. There could have been people protesting and rioting, committing acts of violence against white people, heterosexuals, and of course, MAGA supporters. What if that were to happen? Well, Kim Foxx would have still slapped Smollett on the wrist, perhaps just a stiffer fine. That's about it. Quote, the real injustice here was the sweetheart deal that was given by Kim Foxx's office. At the beginning of all of this, Olabinjo said, Abimbola said Fox cut a deal because Smollett was a star of Empire at the time and used his fame to get out of paying for his actions. Quote, Jussie got that deal because he has influence and power. So it shows that there are two different citizens in America, one with power and one without. And that's why he got that sweetheart deal. Unquote. Oh, yeah, nice try in executing damage control. But that's only half of the reason she cut the deal. The main reason he got the deal is because Fox was definitely not going to charge him with sedition, conspiracy, or any other major criminal charges that would send the pretty boy away to a prison cell. It was politically motivated against a Republican, against Trump, and Fox, a black woman who is a Democrat, would drop charges against a regular citizen as well. Smollett being a celebrity was not the main reason. It was a factor, but it was to protect the left in their determined mission to make Trump appear racist, homophobic, and a bigot. That is the key to all of this. Rhetoric is one thing, although you can be sued for slander. But this was a politically motivated hoax to generate that narrative, but also incite political, racial, and sexual orientation violence in society, all motivated by attacking the President of the United States. Let's continue, though. Fox said the court did the right thing, according to CBS News. Quote, I find it unfortunate that 5 years and millions of dollars later, we're back to where we were back in March of 2019, she said. Fox said her actions in dismissing the charges were just routine. Yeah, it's routine to dismiss charges of a political conspiracy against a sitting president. Happens all the time, except for the political conspiracy charges against the then sitting president. Quote, Mr. Smollett's guilt in the minds of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office was not an issue. We believed that we could meet our burden. We offered him a disposition that we would offer anybody with the same offense. Unquote. You gotta be kidding me. Really? Are you sure about that? What if it were a MAGA supporter? Let's say, I don't know, a white MAGA supporter who had accused a liberal or progressive black person of threatening them, calling them racial and homophobic slurs, and had tied a rope around their neck. Would Kim Foxx dismiss the charges against this white MAGA supporter for creating that hoax? Of course not. She would gabble down so hard in that courtroom, you could hear the echo of the gabble blocks down the street from the courthouse. That white MAGA supporter would be charged with conspiracy. They would also be charged with inciting political violence and even possibly charges of hate crimes against those groups as a so-called moral punishment. And the culprits that participated in the hoax would face stiff jail time as well. It's amazing how they have the gift of just flat out lying right in everyone's faces and don't feel any embarrassment whatsoever. Going back to the 2020 election, Democrats tried to convince the American people there wasn't election fraud because the Supreme Court's ruled there wasn't any evidence of it. Yet this same Supreme Court is a component of the corruption because they were given the evidence of the election fraud with surveillance footage showing poll workers pulling cases from underneath tables after they told the press and poll watchers they were done counting for the night. They went on to pull cases from underneath tables and started scanning ballots multiple times through the machine, regardless of what their reason was for it. It is illegal for legal ballots, despite errors or legible issues with those ballots, to be counted without the presence of the press and poll watchers. You had ballots arriving late past the deadline, and then still counted and added to the tally. You had individuals who spotted suspicious activity and even criminal activity, election workers covering the windows, preventing the press and poll watchers from seeing inside. None of that suspicious behavior would be going on if they weren't cheating. If you have nothing to hide, then you hide nothing. Right? I'm done.
Out of control, they're so corrupt, they don't even try to conceal it. Many of these so-called elected officials should be fired on the spot. because they do not represent a nation of laws. They represent political affiliated foot soldiers who undermine constitutional rights and laws to protect a specific political party or affiliation. This leads to the scales of justice tilting to one side instead of being balanced. And when that happens, criminals such as Jussie Smollett are able to prance around as a victim of injustice, when he should be making sure he doesn't drop the soap in the showers. Anywho, quote, Dan Webb, the special prosecutor who secured the conviction, was outraged at the decision. Make no mistake, today's ruling has nothing to do with Mr. Smollett's innocence. The Illinois Supreme Court did not find any error with the overwhelming evidence presented at trial that Mr. Smollett orchestrated a fake hate crime and reported it to the Chicago Police Department as a real hate crime, or the jury's unanimous verdict that Mr. Smollett was guilty of 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct. In fact, Mr. Smollett did not even challenge the sufficiency of the evidence against him in his appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court. Unquote. The fucker couldn't challenge the evidence against him because it was caught on camera. The investigation determined he had made it all up. And then they proceeded to charge him with faking a hate crime. The individuals involved were then interrogated and testified that they were hired to carry out the conspiracy. Of course, he couldn't challenge anything. He was guilty as charged. But not according to his Democratic friend, Judge Kim Foxx. Oh no, she believes he was a victim of character assassination. Priceless. The ruling stressed that Smollett should never have been charged after Fox's deal took place. Okay, again, we point out the corruption here. This corrupt judge offered Smollett a deal, not only because he's a Hollywood celebrity, but more so because they both are perfectly fine with slandering Trump's reputation. Smollett thought he would get away with it. Thankfully, there are some genuine cops in Chicago, you know. Because if there weren't, this hoax would have successfully been seen as real, which would have fueled the racial and political division even more. But nevertheless, he gets away with the crime. And of course, here comes the wave of media forgiveness, treating him like a victim of circumstances. Oh yes, it's inevitable. Let's dig a bit deeper into the hoax. On January 22, 2019, a letter arrived at the Chicago studio of Smollett's employer. The letter was addressed to Smollett and had a drawing depicting a stick figure hanging from a tree with a gun pointing towards it, as well as lettered magazine clippings reading, quote, Smollett to Jussie, you will die, and MAGA, unquote. The letter also contained a white powder determined to be Tylenol. Now does Kim Foxx factor any of this into her ruling? All of this was plotted up. This was prior to the night of the hoax, which means again it was a conspiracy. Smollett described one of the assailants as a white person, although both were Nigerian brothers. But that was the racial fuel to the fire. He claimed they beat him up, poured a chemical on him, and at some point wrapped a rope around his neck. Ah yes, just make a mockery of being hung by Trump supporters as a black man. Why not? It's not like you're spitting in the faces of some of your ancestors. Well, unfortunately, just like this was a hoax, that history was also a hoax. And this is why Smollett can make a mockery of it, because it's not real. I know some may be shocked by that statement, but it's the brutal truth. Smollett claimed that the attack may have been motivated by his criticism of the Trump administration, and that he believed that the alleged assault was linked to the threatening letter that had been sent to him earlier that month. You see, this fucker conspired to frame Trump supporters, conspired to blame Trump for it, conspired to wage a race war, conspired to create racism and homophobia, conspired to incite political and racial violence in the city of Chicago, and yet is slapped on the wrist like a juvenile who stole a candy bar out of the grocery store. Smollett said that the attack may have been motivated by his criticism of the Trump administration, and that he believed that the alleged assault was linked to the threatening letter that had been sent to him earlier that month. Ah yes, he was paid to create this hoax by Democrats. Then he paid off the two brothers, who ironically worked with him. On April 12th of 2019, the city of Chicago sued Smollett for $130,000, which the police department used for the investigation. But this fucker countersued the city, alleging he was a victim of, quote, mass public ridicule and harm, unquote. Unfucking believable. So you create a fake hate crime, which you filed a police report for, and when the city's police department sued you for wasting their resources and insulting the integrity of law enforcement, you attempt to countersue them? Of this alone, he should be thrown in jail. Mind you, this was created to wage a race war and blame Trump for inciting such hate crimes. The fucker has been released, Trump has been re-elected, and let's see how the left will manufacture another racial hoax. I assume there will be another shooting that grabs national headlines. Ironically, it would be another hoax rooted in the same fuckery that Smollett carried out. The only difference, though, is it will not be a celebrity, rather, a crisis actor, used to push once again the same racial, divisive garbage the opposition has been using since the dawn of time. The playbook needs to be thrown in the trash now, though, because it's outdated. In other words, Democrats need another head coach. I mean, think about it. Democrats are so obsessed in trying to keep Trump out of office, they would create a hoax from a wacko celebrity to do so. This fucker hired individuals to pretend to be Trump supporters, which he claimed one of them was white. And they slung racial and homophobic slurs at him as they beat him up, poured bleach on him, and even wrapped a rope around his neck, symbolizing lynching an African American. Are you serious? Do you see how maniacal Democrats have become? Forging a hateful letter threatening to hang Smollett because he's a black man and a gay black man who is also a Democrat. Ah yes, those evil MAGA white supremacists, empowered by their leader, Hitler himself and Donald Trump. Think about how insane this is, my friends. All of this, including the assassination attempts on Trump's life, the bogus criminal charges, convictions, and impeachments, is not just because Trump is a, quote, rebel against the establishment. No, that's not the main reason Democrats targeted Trump. It's like we've pointed out in this series and in the past. Every election that Trump won proved that he wasn't racist, and more importantly, that racism is an illusion. But because racism is one of the greatest historical strategies to divide and conquer the human civilization, you will have conspirators literally fighting to protect that historical deceit, such as Smollett, Fox, and the two brothers who participated in the political conspiracy against Trump. And then Vice President Kamala Harris came out and quickly showed her support for the so-called hate crime against him. But when it was revealed it was a hoax, she didn't condemn him. She didn't show her displeasure with how he insulted the black community and their history dealing with racism. She didn't show her displeasure with how he insulted the LGBTQ community by faking being a victim of homophobic attacks. None of them came out and condemned it because they were all a part of the hoax. Democrats chose to be the party that represents the so-called oppressed, and Republicans chose to be the party that represents the oppressor. It was a coin flip back in the day, you know, and Democrats got the role of representing the oppressed. Since that very day, they have stuck to the script quite well, I must say. Yet it's been exposed, and even though Republicans are right along with them in this historical deceit, it will be the Democratic Party that falls first in the political matrix. And also, to all of those political grifters out there, you can't hide behind a political party that appears to have more, quote, common sense. You will be weeded out, and to many black people, especially black men, many of you have become conservatives and grift over to the Republican Party. Just know that when the entire political matrix is exposed, which is one of our missions, you will be held accountable for supporting the corruption. Don't misunderstand, the lesser of two evils would be the Republican Party. But as a black person, rejecting a more balanced approach to politics in supporting, let's say, the Independent Party or even libertarians, shows you are willing to align with the other half of the major corruption in the matrix. And we know this is all a political realignment of control, because the black community can leapfrog from Democrat to Republican without checking in the middle first, such as becoming independent or libertarian. Don't follow the power and impact of a political party, because that's where the corruption is manifested. We do not support a political party. We do not support Trump as a Republican. We wanted Trump to get elected to expose the truth about racism. That's the only reason he is necessary in exposing the lies. Trump is a puppet of the elites, just like the rest. So for those out there assuming we support Trump or Republicans, please understand we are unplugged in the matrix. The only party we support is the party society will have once the truth is exposed and there is peace. Wishful thinking, perhaps. But here's the thing, sure, it's quite easy to expose the Democratic Party and the wacky liberals and progressives for their ideology. But as a black person, that very wacky liberal or progressive would question if you're actually black by aligning with a Republican Party that has white nationalists supporting it. You see? And that's a credible question in regards to the racial divide. You can say they are the fringe group, and the far right. But are there any white nationalists known to support the Democratic Party? Negative, and that creates a very sticky predicament for black Republicans. This is why you avoid the left and right side of your brain. Focus on the center, because that's where the truth is. Again, leaning to one side on the scales of justice creates injustice. And that injustice would come in the form of political dishonesty. This is the chaos sector.